I'm not sure where Phoibos designers drew their inspiration from, but if I had to guess, then probably this particular latest model was inspired by some kind of stealth supersonic military tech. And yet, looking at it from the top, especially at this all-black colorway, I can't help but see the resemblance to an iconic Rolex diver. And no, I'm not by any means trying to brush aside brilliant work of Phoibos designers, and yet, seriously, there is something there. However, after spending about 2 weeks with this diver, I can assure you there is definitely more to it than just the looks. So, let's get to the bottom of it.
Bottom.
Hello and welcome back. Right, we are in for a bit of a treat here. Unique design, bunch of very useful functional areas and very interesting approach to shaping the case, which is very often overlooked by other brands. And wait until you see the lume on this diver. But before we get down to dissecting the design elements of this watch, we need to cover the availability. So what we have here is evolution of Phoibos Leviathan collection, and the changes include not just the new colors, but from a brief inspection a couple of very useful functional elements, like quick release spring bars and, my favorite feature, new upgraded bracelet with on-the-fly adjustment. These new 5 colorways were released literally a few days ago on the 13th of September with an introductory price of $330, which is pretty sharp in realm of macro brands. However, there will also be an early bird discount available until the 30th of October. The discount is quite substantial, for about $65, nearly 20%. However, if you are watching this video after the date, Phoibos does run all kind of sales from time to time, so I will put the product links and any available to me discount information in the description of this video. Definitely do check it out. And before we move on, for a full transparency, a quick disclaimer: obviously being absolutely swept away with my amazing presentation style and about 10% video retention, Phoibos sent me this new model for review and I get to keep it too. And no money change hands. So yes, please watch this video until the very end, so my retention goes to 100% and hopefully Phoibos lets me review more of their stunning collections. So after I stopped admiring somewhat unusual case design, which looks like it was chiseled out of gemstone by a master sculptor, and after I've got over the fact that this Leviathan diver reminds me so much of Rolex Submariner, the next thing I've noticed was how comfortable it sits on my wrist. Yes, I think this aspect of watch design is very often overlooked, although it seems like an obvious thing. I am talking about ergonomics here. You see, our wrists are not exactly round, especially on the top, however, they are not completely flat either. To show you what I'm talking about, here is an example of a very popular form factor used by countless Submariner Homages. You see, the case is flat, and it shows. And here is this Phoibos. You see how lugs comply with the shape of my wrist. Such an ergonomic design also helps to distribute the weight of this, truth to be told, quite prominent timepiece. Right, so dimensions. It will probably come as no surprise that we have here 40mm diameter case and 20mm lugs, which is, yes, very similar to that iconic diver that I mentioned earlier. And despite quite a chunky look, the case has a well-managed height of 12.8mm, which is fine for a diver. Lug to lug is also well-managed, measuring at 48mm. However, we obviously have here protruding end links, and the distance between them is 52.8mm. Now, it does sound a bit on the high side, however, the end links are so aggressively slanted down that it is not really a problem, and this tool watch should be okay on wrists starting from about 6¼ inch, and I will show how this watch wears on my about 7-inch wrist throughout this video. The bracelet also has a slight taper down to 18mm by the clasp, and as supplied should cover wrists up to almost 9 inches or 22.5 cm in circumference, so we have quite a generous amount of spare links, and as supplied this watch weighs 180 grams and 167 grams after adjusting it to my about 7-inch wrist. Okay, I think I already covered a few interesting aspects of this solid 316L stainless steel case, The case has an all-around satin brushed finish, the finishing quality is very good, and it even further helps to accentuate the complexity of the case shape. The design is very interesting. I like this somewhat futuristic pronounced facets on the top and on the sides. Even the crown guards have a multitude of different edges coming together to create a very kinda three-dimensional look. Okay, it is obviously a three-dimensional object, but I hope you see what I mean. And at the same time, the case is very, yes, ergonomic, and it's not just the way it sits on the wrist, but also in terms of how easy it is to operate this well-proportioned screw-down crown, which is signed and also is nicely sculpted to fit the overall aesthetics of this case. And it is also as easy to operate this 120-click unidirectional bezel. Okay, the bezel operation maybe could benefit from a slightly grippier bezel edge, however I think it is an acceptable compromise between form and function. And talking about the bezel, we have here a matte black ceramic insert, which of course, besides looking really good, also brings a benefit of higher scratch resistance. The markings on the bezel are loomed and loomed really well, as we will see shortly. And we have here a very decent bezel action. Very little backplay and tolerances are good. I must admit that the bezel action is a bit muted compared to some other models in the same price range, however it is still precise and tactile, and also the alignment is spot on. And by the way, here is how it sounds. Turning the case around, and we're faced with a screw-on back case featuring Phoibos' well-known logo with some key specifications around the perimeter. So we have here a very purposeful looking tool watch with a very practical 200 meters of declared water resistance. We have a perfectly flat sapphire crystal here. The crystal is almost flush with the bezel, okay, maybe a fraction of a millimeter above it. According to product listings, there are 3 layers of anti-reflective coating applied here, and I must say it definitely shows. The sapphire crystal deals with reflections really well, and the legibility is excellent. Okay, the dial. We have here Phoibos' original design dial, which looks very well balanced and at the same time has that diver DNA in its core. We have applied our indices and well-proportioned and nicely framed date window at 3 o'clock position. The key feature of this dial is the circular brushing on the background, resulting in a nice sunburst effect. Also, while the black and white dial colorways have pretty much uniformed dial color, all the other colorways have a gradient pattern fading to black at the edge of the dial. Everything else is printed here, and I like the very subtle red accents on the wording and on the tip of the second hand. And speaking of hands, we have here a sword-style set of hands. The hands are multifaceted and have longitudinal brushing, adding to the visual interest of the dial. And of course, hands are very well filled with no less than 15 layers of BGW9 Superluminova, and so are apparently the hour indices and bezel markings. And looking at the loom footage, I will not argue with that. This is probably one of the best loom performers in my collection, and if you like a good loom on your desk diver, well, you will not be disappointed. And while there is a lot to discuss in terms of design, this watch is a bit less exciting in the movement department. As you might have guessed, we have here tried and tested Seiko Instruments NH35 movement. Phoibos does venture into other calibers like Miyota 9000 series in some of their collections, however, it is not the case here. Personally, given the price point, I am okay with the choice of movement here, but it would be interesting to see what you think about it. Do let us know in the comments. Turning our attention to the bracelet, and we have a solid stainless steel construction with multifaceted top of the links designed in style to complement the head of this watch. The solid end-links integrate with the case very well, and as I pointed out earlier, the end-links feature a quick-release spring bars, allowing us to remove the bracelet in seconds. The links are connected by screws, which is nice to have at this price point, and the bracelet has a satin brushing finish all around, similar to the case. And we definitely need to talk about this clasp. We have a fully milled double pusher clasp here with a very handy on-the-fly adjustment, which is an upgrade from the previous version of this watch. The clasp is also well finished with satin brushing and is engraved with the Phoibos logo. Well, my verdict, what can I say? We have here a very purposeful tool watch which just had yet another iteration of refinement, and it is quite hard to fault. It would be interesting to see if Phoibos will consider alternative movements for this collection at some stage, but it will most likely push the price. However, I think the main selling point here is Phoibos' unique and original design, and if you want to see more of their unique and original designs, I will put one of my reviews of Phoibos divers somewhere around here on the screen. Thank you for watching, don't forget to subscribe, take care, and I will see you in the next video.